following is a brief dramatization of a case study on climate change. The case of the missing bees. When you hear the phrase climate change, what is the first thing that comes to mind? It is likely the idea of melting ice caps and disappearing glaciers, and images of emaciated polar bears. Although these are examples of the effects of climate change, which is defined as long-term variations in climate variables such as temperature and precipitation, you don't have to travel to the Arctic to find examples. There are many that you can find much closer to home. In 2005, Laura Jones was 5 years into operating a small apple farm. Laura had quit her job as a financial analyst with a large bank and purchased 10 acres in the country. She had 5 acres of orchard planted with big, beautiful red apples and planned on converting more of her land into additional orchards over the next 3 years. Laura had secured agreements with a number of boutique produce shops in town and would sell out nearly all of her crops every year. Laura would spend her Sundays at the local farmer's market and was excited to start to sell some of her ugly fruit to a craft cider brewer. Business was good. Laura's success was in part due to a stable crop that she was able to consistently harvest every year. In 2006, something changed. Her normally consistent bumper crop started to fail. She was unable to fulfill some of her orders, and her beautiful big apples started to shrink in size, and in some cases, the trees failed to produce any apples at all. Laura was confused and a bit nervous. She planned to try some new strategies the next year to see if she could turn things around. In the spring of 2007, Laura noticed that her trees bloomed a bit earlier than the year prior. She spoke with her neighbor, an older farmer that had spent his whole life working in orchards, and he commented that trees have bloomed earlier and earlier in recent decades. While walking amongst her trees, she noticed something that made her even more concerned. She remembered as a young child she would frequently get stung by a bee while out climbing trees. Luckily, she wasn't allergic, but she thought back to that time and realized that the hypnotic drone of the bees investigating blooms amongst the leaves was missing. Where were the bees? Her neighbor had always kept hives of bees on his property, so Laura went to pay him a visit to see if he had any insights into what was happening. The old farmer told her that last year his hives had died out inexplicably. He had replenished his hives this year, but they were struggling. At the farmer's market that week, Laura spoke with some of the other vendors that had stalls near hers. They complained about similar issues. Trevor, a local strawberry farmer, had read about how rising global temperatures were affecting seasons, making it more and more difficult to predict the seasonal changes that signaled when to plant crops. A heated conversation arose amongst the vendors, with some arguing that changes were normal and that was just part of running an agricultural business. Others argued the opposite, that these changes were getting worse and that human behavior was the real culprit. Laura was keen to learn more in order to help her fellow small business operators. She planned to spend her winter researching what was happening and present her findings to her local government representatives. Could there be a connection between these missing bees and her floundering apple crop? Why were her trees blooming so early? And did this play a part in the mystery? And finally, why was there so much debate around human impact on the natural processes that were apparently at play? But Laura needs help. Are you ready?